Good evening, Mike. I can hear you.
Great. Good evening, Oink, and everyone else. Guess maybe we can wait just wait a minute before we really get started. I see that we don't have as many people, and I'm wondering if it's because we didn't really announce explicitly that we were going to have this one. We did announce that we would, but we didn't really maybe make an effort to get more people.
Yeah, I put it on Twitter, but 8 p.m. GMT is in another hour, so I think we're an hour early. But since I've got a recording software recording, I don't think that's a problem. People can always...
Oh, no. If we're going to do it in an hour, then actually what I should do is I should drop off and continue coding. My mistake then, and I guess come back in an hour.
You did at the same time yesterday. But
so, yeah, I think today Michael Jr. made the point that yesterday it might have been a little harder to ask questions. So today what I'm definitely going to do is be on the PBaaS development channel at the same time. And it looks like people are joining. Be on the PBaaS development channel at the same time looking at things. And I'd like to, I know that there probably will be people today that weren't here yesterday. So I don't want to miss some of the basics, but I'm wondering if maybe we could do more of a question-guided discussion so that people could really maybe learn how to use things, especially before we get the GUI. I think it's important that people understand, you know, how certain things work. And I'll give a couple examples. There were some issues since the launch. So one issue is that the reserve with pre-mine chain, I only started it with a day of notary rewards, and it ran out of notary rewards. And when that happened, everybody who was mining and notarizing at the time got a false assertion. So it was kind of a rude way to run out of notary rewards to crash the daemon. Sorry about that. So I was gonna make that so that wouldn't happen. And then also the example that we offered. Go ahead. I can't, whoever's talking, am I the only one who can't hear?
I can't hear me either.
Okay. Is that, who was that? Was that Michael Jr. or?
No. Okay. I think it was
Rosa?
Booyah Casher. Looks like.
All right. Whoever is trying to talk right now, I don't know if you can hear us, but something seems wrong with your data maybe, and it just isn't enough bandwidth for us to hear you. So I'm not sure who that is. Yeah, we might have to mute you if. I think you're right. It's probably Booyah Kashar.
If you're trying to ask a question, you can feel free to type it in the PBaaS development channel.
Yeah. Let's just hope right now he gets that figured out. And if that isn't Rosa, is that correct? I see Rosa, you're unmuted as well. Is that not you?
No, that wasn't me asking that question.
Okay. So it was Booyah Kashar, and it, yeah. Booyah Kashar, we can't hear you. So please mute yourself and let's see. Okay. Booyah, Kashar, I muted you, but only because we can't hear you. We're happy to hear what you have to ask or say. So if you can get your audio working better, maybe type into PBaaS development and I'll go ahead and unmute you because we're not even sure if you can hear us because we can't understand anything that you're trying to say. So hopefully you'll get that message. And I don't know if anyone wants to just ping him in a DM if they feel like it. So let's see. So the problem that a couple people had, and I think it was OX03 ran into this, and he's quite experienced, and so if he ran into it, it means that that is a little bit challenging, was that in our example, we gave an example of a chain that required a certain amount of contribution or it wouldn't start. It was like that Kickstarter, like model, and that was in the example. It didn't have enough contributions to start, so the chain didn't start. And I think Garnet Fan did the same thing using the example. I saw that message. I did see the message, but it wasn't actually responding quickly enough for me to be clear. But okay, thank you. I will look more closely in case I can figure it out from that earlier next time. So back to the the thing is that the chain that starts with this Kickstarter feature, it's an intentional feature, but it means your chain won't start, and 2 people have already been hit by that, and so probably we should make an example that doesn't include that. And then the other thing that happened is I didn't even know that I was actually going to get that feature working, the part where it doesn't start, until shortly before we got this out on testnet, and I didn't think it would matter so much in this test round to process the refunds. So 2 people ran into it, and we didn't process the refunds. So I'm actually working on an update to address, all these issues, and I really appreciate people testing, and I love the fact that everybody's, like letting me know all of these things that you're running into. That's great. So I'm working on an update. Hope to have it out later today. That will also include processing of refunds and all of that stuff. Refunds will be really nice, actually, the way that they're done. If a chain doesn't start because it doesn't have enough contribution and it is going to be refunded, then it'll just happen kind of automatically, the same way that exports and imports happen right now, where all of the funds that would have gone to the chain will just actually kind of be imported back to the Verus or VRSCTEST chain, and all of a sudden your money will just be back in your wallet. So I think that's kind of the nice, easiest way to do it, and that would really just round out and complete that Kickstarter feature, and then, okay, your chain wouldn't have started, but you'd get all your funds back, and everybody else would too. So, so that's kind of where things are. I think if we're looking at starting in an hour, because that's what I announced, then we might want to pause right now, or at least I will. Everybody else can talk, and if you have things to discuss and you get questions together, because in the discussion you still have those questions, that could be useful for some people. But I'm going to drop off and come back then, I guess, in 50 minutes when the announcement actually says that we were going to start, and we'll go from there. Before I drop off, anyone have any specific thing I should be thinking about before we start?
I have the question of how you guys were talking about ARM chips yesterday, and I know that's what cell phones use. and I'm interested how you might be able to incorporate staking and all of this usage on a cell phone, because most of the world have cell phones versus a physical desktop. So that's just one of my questions.
Yeah, so actually that question came up yesterday, and I didn't really spend much time answering it because Michael answered it, and Michael Jr. answered it, and he was pretty clear that we were waiting for, first we're going to get PBaaS finished, and then there's the SPV support that we would put in, and that would enable staking. That would enable us to make staking possible. The challenge of staking on a cell phone is that staking isn't like, it's not like interest, and it's not like some minor process. GMT8 is in 50 minutes actually, unless daylight savings time switched. I didn't realize that. So it's not a minor process. Staking is actually the same processing of a block as is mining. It doesn't do the hashing, but it still has to process a block. And so we technically could, with the SPV support staking on a cell phone. Because of what we're doing, and because Verus, for example, I expect it to be pretty busy. And when you make a block, there's actually, if it's busy, you've actually got a fair amount of networking, and and now there's of course the conversion solving and packing in the block and all of these other things. We could do that. We could make it so that you could stake on cell phones, but I think that cell phones that we're staking, that we're not plugged in, might run out of battery really fast. And so I'm not sure. It can be done. It's something that we're gonna, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it after PBaaS, because it will require that SPV, or even better, the Fly client or NSPV, super lightweight support, could still enable it. And then the real question is, maybe it might require someone, which I guess, actually, I'm just thinking about it. Because as I said that, I just realized that there probably are ways to optimize it on a cell phone that could make it so that it would work more efficiently. Maybe, yeah. Maybe even allow people to pair up, and stake in connection with a node or something like that from their phone, or to control staking. Right now, I'm not sure. I guess the answer is, I have no doubt that technically we can make it work, and that would require obviously some, development time that we won't put in something else in order to do that. But if it were, because processing blocks on the network actually requires some actual power, if that were the case, how important do you think that would be? Just curious.
Well, I'm just thinking of people that generally don't have access to a desktop, and a lot of things are moving more and more to mobile. Like my nieces and nephews now, they have a laptop, they don't even touch it. They use the tablet and they use their phone. So I see for the next generation and the next wave of growth to come from going to a mobile device.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. The growth, and so maybe, okay, so we had originally thought that we would actually put some focus on staking on mobile. As I've been working on this, on the PBaaS and the reserve currencies and everything else, and really thinking about what it would take for a mobile phone to solve blocks and everything. It certainly is possible, but it may actually take more power than I had originally been thinking about. But let's say then that as a community we should have that as a goal, because I think you're right and I think just your points are good. And so let's say that we could have that as a goal, and let's say that, you know, I can think of ways, like I said, to optimize the power consumption so that you really just do everything possible to qualify whether or not you would win a staked block before you ever do the work to put it together. I think that's kind of the key. And then we could also consider options like, you know, recognizing if the phone is plugged in, and in the settings of the wallet, maybe saying, you know, stake if it's plugged in or don't if it's not, something like that.
That's a good idea.
Can I jump really quick?
Yeah.
Hey, just a quick idea on that topic. You know, the more I work with droplets, and they're like $5, it's basically a $5 server per month. It might be kind of cool to, instead of focusing on the, you know, doing the staking from the phone, focus on an interface that interacts with something like a droplet, where a service provider, a public blockchains provider, could provide the server power to run the node all the time and staking, and the app would give the user access to their personal staking node session, and anytime they win, a portion of those fees could just go to the operator, the person who's paying for that server to operate. And that's another way of looking at how this could, if you're looking at staking. And the other point that I wanted to interject is, as far as mobile, it seems like Z transactions is a much higher priority, isn't it?
Good point as on the Z, right? Well, there are two things actually. It's not just Z transactions. So I really like the idea of, if you put money into a droplet and it's staking, it doesn't take a ton of power. It would only be smart for DigitalOcean to actually like do something that would support the thing you just described, that would give, you know, if someone's got enough staking power that they're going to make more than the $5 per month, you know, then they basically get a free droplet that would be paid for by their staking. And I really like that idea from a business model perspective. You know, that's another path that's also going to be some development for all the communication and the app side and everything else. But of course, you kind of inherently have a server sitting there, so that there might be some nice ways to integrate that, maybe even with your Verus Pay work or something. As far as Z transactions versus staking, I would also agree that I actually think there's Z transactions, but then there's also like conversions, you know. So I want to be able to convert all the PBaaS Reserve coins on my phone, and everyone's probably thinking, oh, well, it's just, of course we'll be able to do that. And the fact is that right now, you know, we have we've really done a lot of work advancing the crypto conditions, and there isn't a mobile phone that actually supports, or there isn't a light mode wallet right now that I know of that actually supports crypto conditions, except as just you know, sending to an address, and if there's a crypto condition that can respond to that. So having support, I would actually say having support for currency conversions and basic functions through the crypto condition support would be maybe even priority one. Z transactions would be after that, and then staking would be after that. And I think that, you know, once we now have three things kind of saying, all right, these are things that we want to get into mobile, in addition to just basic, you know, mobile support for everything that's going on. I think there's also the point that we want more developers to join, and as people understand what this is and people start using it to, you know, fund projects and make money, and we start getting more velocity and things really start to grow, you know, the foundation can actually help to fund more people. But even right now, if anyone knows people who are capable of developing, you know, on commercial software bases, or even just, you know, close and believe that they can help and want to and are really motivated, please refer them to, you know, any of the current people developing so that we can get more people doing this, because it is possible that someone could be working on, you know, staking support while someone is working on, you know, we can do things in parallel. And right now we just, you know, we're a community, and we, you know, we have some people who are doing things, but we can have any number of people actually building things. They can build them for their own reasons, to make their own, you know, features and integrate things into the code and do pull requests and have another business plan or plan of their own in process. Or they can come and say, we want to be core, you know, developers in the community, and talk to people, and they could potentially get support from the foundation for doing that. There are a number of different, or they could just work on doing things, you know, you know, I believe this should be in, I'm capable of doing it, I'm going to work on doing it, and they can be rewarded for that as well. So, yeah, and let's see, who was it? Was that Rosa who was asking about that?
Yeah, I was asking about some of the mobile stuff.
Yeah. So, how is that for a long kind of discussion and conclusion and answer? That basically, yes, it sounds like something we should do. Sounds like we've got, I think, and if anyone disagrees, please let me know. I think, you know, currency conversions and crypto condition capabilities are probably, you know, along with Z transactions, but slightly ahead of them even, and then there's staking after that. It's kind of how I think that would prioritize. What do you think?
No, I'd have to agree with you, and then maybe even put forth mining. You know, as cell phones progress over the next couple of years, these ARM chips are pretty powerful.
Yeah, but mining right now, I'm just gonna say, I think that we might want to wait until phones come out that can show they're able to do that. Really.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for answering. And I did have
Okay.
another question.
Yeah.
What about security, like tokens that might be coming out? Will we be able to program different restrictions within these?
Oh, you mean like, would it be possible for someone to make a security token?
Exactly. Could we use your platform to build a security token?
I don't think there's anything new that would be needed to do that, actually, over what we already have, aside from having it all finished and on MAINNET. Because right now, you know, to run a network, you have a few different options. You can have notarization rewards that are just paid. You can have the ability, if it's a reserve currency, to have reserves as, this is not in the testnet right now, but the plan is to have the reserves of a currency be able to stake, and when it stakes, basically to have that money generated from the reserve of that currency staking go back into paying for, you know, rewards and notarizations and adding to the reserves of a coin, so the money's not just sitting there unused. And so the other model, if you think about this, you could say, well, there's an initial contribution as part of a chain definition, which goes in first. So if you have an initial contribution that is the same as the max pre-convert, it means that your offering is not open to anyone publicly, because you basically bought all of your offering when you defined the chain at the same time. And if you do that, then it means that you now have a standard centralized way, if you're the company or organization defining the chain, of determining who gets those coins. And you can still do, you know, a mineable coin, you can still do a stakeable coin, but you actually don't even, you could have your mining and staking and rewards, in fact, happen through reserves that, because right now, in the way that the testnet is set up, all of the reserve conversions, currency conversions, reserve sends on a blockchain, they don't have, we don't have gas because we don't need it. The currency conversion allows the reserve currency that's being sent around to be converted into native coins, and the fees end up getting paid in native coins. And all of, when you mine a block, all of the fees that are reserve currency converted into native coins are actually like little tiny buys on the currency. And so, and that happens all automatically. But the system that does that is the same. The system that does that is the same system that would allow us to say, well, you don't have access to that currency at all. Like, you can't, a miner makes only the reserves, and the native coins for fees get actually converted to reserves before they get paid out. And so, you know, stakers and miners on that currency make only reserves. And so if that currency was a security, you know, there's obviously going to have to be some need to have, you know, mining and staking, or some reward system, some paying for the infrastructure in some way to run those chains. But the currency itself could be protected, just like a voting authorization currency could be protected, so that no one has any access to it if they weren't explicitly authorized to have access to it, but they could still potentially make rewards, and there could still even be a reserve on a currency that doesn't give other people access to it, that replenishes, you know, the cost of running that currency. So it could be something like almost a capital expense to run a security currency. So I think, and then whoever decided that they were going to take all of that currency could, you know, have KYC requirements and everything else. I don't believe that we want to build in KYC AML requirements of any kind on the blockchain. I don't believe that would be the right thing to do. But I do believe that with the system that we've got right now, there are plenty of ways for chain launching, you know, people or organizations to structure it so that they have full control over the supply. And I think that's all you'd really need. I think, I'm not a lawyer, but, and so this is not any kind of legal advice or legal opinion, but I think that that's all you need in order to control the supply to the extent you would need to in order to do all the KYC AML requirements for and everything else you would need to make it an actual security. But like I said, I'm not a lawyer, and so we're really focused on the protocol, but I don't see why this wouldn't enable you to do that.
Okay, sounds very interesting and promising. But yeah, generally what you have to do is track it through like a KYC and AML. So more or less.
But that's what I'm saying is you absolutely could do that. Like,
okay,
basically the way you do it is this: you're going to launch a chain. You launch the chain, but you actually take custody of all the currency, and then you have a KYC AML process that is not on our blockchain or not on a. I mean, you could write it into another PBaaS chain yourself if you wanted to make an app to do that for securities. But the point is that the KYC AML process, it's fully compatible. It's just not a blockchain process. See what I mean?
makes sense.
Does that? Yeah. Okay.
Right, it's not built into the blockchain. You have to use a third party or an outside app to do the KYC or AML.
That's what yeah, exactly.
So like the launcher could do something on their website that would, you know, either grant people or disgrant people the access, and then they could act as the third party, and then the blockchain could interact with them somehow using an API and pull the data and allow people to move the tokens based on their ability to do so.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, great. Because that's another huge market that you could, you know, this project could potentially tap into would be the security market.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that there are, like right now, the goal is to make a protocol that would really be able to do a lot of general kind of, to handle a lot of general use cases. The use cases that we're pursuing, obviously the securities market involves a lot of overhead where there's a lot of working, legal overhead, regulatory, and all these other things. And I think it would be better for us as a community coin to just have, and I know that there in fact are people interested in doing that kind of work on the chain, but I don't think it's something that as a community coin would be beneficial for us to dive in and get involved in, because we're not funded to do that kind of thing. And that could, just the overhead of that could probably use the resources of most people in the community, working on it and having nothing to do with development. And so I think, I believe that the protocol fully enables security coins, and certainly a company could make, and I already know that there is in fact one company that we're having discussions with, I don't know how that will pan out, where they want to basically make a investment product that would run on a PBaaS chain, and that would definitely require access to that particular part of that investment product would definitely require KYC AML, and they have a plan for handling that that's outside the blockchain, because I don't think it's something we really want to spend much time on. I don't think it would be beneficial to helping us make, good general protocols. And so, so their thinking is in fact to allow access through, this KYC AML process, but at the end of the day, there will be a protocol-based currency as well. So you won't have the same access as people who do the KYC AML, but there will be a protocol that will actually allow people to benefit from the fact that that's happening. Do you know what I mean? Probably not. Maybe not clear enough. There's a bunch of legal stuff that they need to figure out, and it's going to be expensive for them to figure all that stuff out. And so yes, I think it's a big market. It's really well suited for large kind of ICO funded projects more than it is for us. And I think that there's no reason that actually we wouldn't have large ICO funded or otherwise funded projects on PBaaS, but probably just not the core community protocol and the open protocol is what I'm thinking.
Okay, so it does sound like a security token would be available, just not immediately. I do understand you guys are obviously just getting started with this, but
no, we're not. It's a community. It's a community. So
right.
What I'm saying is, anyone can do that. I believe the protocol would make it possible, absolutely, to do that, but we're not planning to do that anytime at all.
Okay.
That I know of. And if someone wants to join the community and do it, then they can join the community and have like they could write those features into a chain as long as it wouldn't interfere with a more kind of technically general protocol. But the protocol would enable companies that want KYC AML gates on their customers to apply those gates and just have the protocol behind them. I don't think we're doing anything to not enable it or to disable it or to prevent it from being easy to do, and we have features that allow them to do it. But I don't think we're ever. I don't believe. This is my opinion. It's a community, so people can disagree with me. I don't believe that it's something that as a community we should invest time or energy into, because there are plenty of companies, large companies, that will want to do it, and they'll have business models around it, and we're not really even a business. Does that make sense?
No, it totally does make sense.
Okay. All right. Well, I will still drop off for about 25 minutes and come back. And I see that. So is it really 6:34 GMT right now? Or UTC?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Oh, wow.
I sent out a tweet, it would be 7 o'clock UTC, and due to
Did
a
you
bit of a
guys
mix
change
of,
time just recently? Were you?
No, not till October.
Because it's 11:35 here and we're -8, I thought. But I see that that's true. Okay. All right, so just in the interest of respecting people's time who are going to join, what do people think we should do on timing then? I mean, I actually could join in an hour and 25 minutes. That would also be fine for me. Is everyone else okay with that? We did say 8. Michael Jr., you okay with that too? OX03?
That, I mean, I could be here
Okay.
for a while, but probably not as long as last time if it's going to be the same length as before because I have to wake up early. And that's like 10
Got
p.m.
it. Okay, so what I would actually then suggest that just because we said it was going to be 8, that we do it at 8. And so I'll drop off now and work on coding until 8, which is then actually really the real 8, not my mistaken time. Yeah, yesterday Spike is just mentioning that yesterday, yes. That was a mistake.
Spike sent out a tweet though at like 20 minutes ago that it will start in 45 minutes.
I already removed that one.
Oh.
I'll make a new.
Okay, thank you. All right, so yeah, I would say let's do it at 8, and I will take more care next time to not just think that I know what time it is there and check. So, all right, so I will see everybody or hear everybody back in an hour and 20 minutes, and until then, enjoy. Talk to you then.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll be then back to
Okay.